Here, I think.
Mr. Helms?
Here.
Mr. Rivera?
Here.
Mr. Sabrina?
Here.
Mr. Silva?
Here.
Ms. Spinelli?
Here.
And Mr. English.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Berman. And welcome to your first meeting.
Thank you.
In compliance with the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law, commonly referred to as the Sunshine Law, the Vineland Board of Education has caused notice and posting of this meeting to be sent to the following, announcing time and place thereof, agenda, etc. The Daily Journal, the Press of Atlantic City, the Grapevine, the Clerk for the City of Vineland, the Administrative Office Public Bulletin Board. At this time, I ask that everyone please rise for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, do we have any public comment on agenda items or any matter? Do we have anyone this evening, Mr. Berman?
Yes. Mr. Brian DeNova on topic number 6.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brian DeWinney. I live at 1599 Maurice River Parkway in Vineland, New Jersey. I'm a Vineland Public School graduate. My children were Vineland Public School graduates. And I sat on the board for 2 successful terms several years ago. And I appreciate you as board members, all the work you do. I'm here to talk, for those of you who didn't know my style, I have a sense of humor. So today I came to talk about the budget. Don't raise taxes. I'm kidding. I came here to talk about the Oak and Main School. The Oak and Main School was attended by many since it opened 100 years ago. It sits on a highly visible intersection that many of us pass by all the time. Now, as school board members, you have the role to be a steward of the city's assets. This school was built not with state funding, but with taxpayer funds. And over the years, the school has been maintained and money spent when needed. When I was on the board, I think we had to do something with ADA or bathrooms. I know every year you have fire suppression and utilities to pay. But right now, you have as individuals, you have a decision to make whether or not you want to move forward with the decision to put this out for bid to sell or to donate this to a nonprofit organization, which is being led by Vineland Public High School graduates. And the fact that there's a number of Vineland Public High School graduates pulling together to do something good, it doesn't happen often enough, in my opinion. Now, I sat on the board back when the Morris Fell School was donated to the city of Vineland, and I led the charge to make that happen. And the people that benefited were one athletic group, youth wrestling, for the city of Vineland. They didn't have a home, now they have a home. And it was a good situation for those kids. What we're asking here as a group is for the donation of the Oak and Main School to not benefit one group of kids or athletes, but all kids, all students in the city of Vineland. It's the opportunity that you have in front of you that can do something that can benefit not only the generations that attended there in the past, but future generations in the future. Now, the asking price, from what I gather, is you're looking, if you decide to go forward with the sale, is $150,000. Now, your budget, according to your agenda, is close to $208 million. Your ECBA budget, I thought, was 10, but it looks like $17 million. That's about $225 million that you decide where that money is being spent. The $150,000 is a very small sum. When I sat on the board, we didn't spend money well. That's just a plain fact. I'm sure if you dig a little, you can find $150,000 in savings. Per your agenda item 5C, you already saved year-to-date $38,000 in change. And if you dig a little, maybe even go after that solicitor rate, knock it down a little bit, you know, you can pick up some money there. That's my sense of humor, Bob. But basically, the choice is yours as school board members, each and every one of you. When I was on the board and I consulted a number of board members who still sit, I said, look, make a decision. When you get the facts, make a decision. So when you wake up in the morning, you look in the mirror and feel that you made the right decisions. You have a choice that can help students in the long run for a long time. And for those of you who are not familiar with nonprofits, I am a CPA. A nonprofit organization has a mission statement, and the organization cannot just pick up and give money to wherever they want or give assets to where they want. Per the bylaws, as guided by the state of New Jersey, there's rules for that. So individually and as part of a group, I'm hopeful that you can see the benefit as individual board members to make decision to donate the school, keep it in the hands of the people from Vineland, living in Vineland, and also helping the children and students of Vineland. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dewaney. Do we have anyone else this evening, Mr. Berman?
No, sir.
At this time, is there anyone else that would like to address the board before we move on? Seeing none, at this time, superintendent recommendations, please. Dr. Gruccio.
Thank you. I would like to recommend discussion of the following items regarding the 2021-22 preliminary school district budget for submission to the State of New Jersey Department of Education. General Fund, $180,420,638 with a local tax levy of $719,372. Special revenue, $27,348,072. Totaling $207,768,710 with the tax levy as stated prior.
Do I have any questions or comments?
Okay, I'd like to recommend discussion of the local tax levy in the amount of $26,719,372.
Any questions or comments?
I would like to recommend discussion of the maximum travel amount in accordance with NJAC 68:23A-7.3 for the 2021-22 school district budget in the amount of $39,528.50. The travel amount spent to date in the 2021 budget is $778.69.
Any questions or comments?
I would like to recommend discussion of the following annual appointments for Mr. Henry Berman: the custodian of school district records, the contracting agent, and the public agency compliance officer.
Questions or comments?
I would like to recommend discussion of the appointment of Mr. Henry Berman as the district's qualified purchasing agent and to establish the bid threshold at the amount pursuant to NJSA 18A:18A-3A and any increase authorized in NJSA 18A:18A-3B.
Questions or comments?
I would like to recommend approval of items 5A through 5E.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please. Mr. Berman?
Ms. Costa?
Yes.
Mrs. Cataspati?
Yes.
Mr. Fiocchi?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Rivera?
Yes.
Mr. Sobrana?
Yes.
Mr. Sylvia?
Yes.
Ms. Spinelli? And Mr. English.
Yes. Dr. Gruccio, just a quick question. In years past, we've always had the board had the opportunity to receive the line-by-line budget items. We used to be able to come in.
Anybody who would like to go over that with Mr. Berman and Mr. Mostrell is more than welcome to. Just schedule an appointment.
Okay,
Okay?
perfect. And thanks, Mr. Mustarella, for meeting with the board this week, who was able to meet, and last Friday as well. I appreciate that. All righty. That concludes superintendent recommendations. At this time, we are at number 6 on our agenda, which proposed items for review or discussion or adoption by board members. This is going to be a discussion and possible action regarding the Oak and Main School property. Before I turn it over to Mr. DeSanto, so he can just give a brief synopsis on how we got to this point, just for the public's knowledge. Mr. Silva had contacted me early Friday morning that he would like to have discussion about donating this building, and he made it before any deadlines, and we were able to speak with Mr. DeSanto, and we were able to get this to the agenda at that point. And at this time, I'm just going to go to Mr. DeSanto, so you can just kind of brief us on where we stand and how we got to this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. English. After several unsuccessful attempts to sell Oak and Main, the board reduced the asking price to 100, or the minimum bid to $150,000, and at the board meeting on February 10, the board authorized solicitation of sealed bids for this property. Subsequently, the superintendent received a proposal which came from the Vineland Community Foundation, a New Jersey nonprofit corporation. Mr. English and Dr. Gruccio asked me to review the proposal and review the certificate of formation and advise whether or not it was possible for the board to convey this property to this organization. I was satisfied after reviewing the certificate of incorporation and the proposal that this nonprofit corporation meets one of the criteria under NJSA 18A:20-9. Under that statute, a board may convey property for nominal consideration to the municipality, which we've done, and to a certain group of nonprofits, which includes Rescue Squad, volunteer fire companies, American Legion, child care, nonprofit hospital, etc. Included within this group is a nonprofit historic preservation organization duly incorporated under the laws of the state of New Jersey to provide a place for educational, cultural, and musical functions. Reading the incorporation papers and the proposal, I advised Dr. Gruccio and Mr. English that this nonprofit corporation meets that criteria and could be considered for conveyance of the property. The issue that we have here tonight was raised by Mr. Silva. He asked if this could be presented tonight. And it seemed to be somewhat of a time-sensitive matter because administration, the business office, has the advertisement scheduled for this week. We're required to have 2 advertisements to sell the property at bidding. So the first advertisement is scheduled for this week, the second for next week. So if the board had any thought about changing its mind in terms of how it's going to convey this property, action had to be considered tonight. In my opinion, if the board were to consider the request of the proposal, 2 resolutions would have to be adopted. The first resolution would be a resolution rescinding the February 10 resolution that triggered off the solicitation of sealed bids. In other words, we have to rescind that resolution so that you don't have the situation where you have people in the public thinking they could bid on the property and then realize that that isn't going to be done. The second resolution would be a detailed resolution authorizing the conveyance to a nonprofit, but that needs to have a number of conditions to it. The statute allows, as we've done with the City of Vineland in the past, allows us to have what is called a reverter clause in the deed, which means that if the property is no longer used for the purposes in which you conveyed it, that the property reverts to the Board of Education. So, for example, the board is totally within its authorization to provide for that particular condition. So I don't believe, without discussion of the board and some information that I need, that we could entertain the second resolution tonight. I'm proposing that if the second resolution is to be adopted or considered anyway, that it be considered at the April meeting, where I would have the entire resolution drafted, all of the verbiage in it, and board members can have it linked to them and see before the April meeting what it is they're voting on. I believe that to be the better procedure. But tonight, if the consensus of the board is to move forward with the conveyance to the nonprofit, it's my opinion that you must adopt the first resolution and rescind the public sale resolution so that that's off the table and allows you now to move forward on your alternative decision. I will answer any questions that the board may have.
Do you suggest that we have discussion first, or should we have a motion first?
Well, you know, in our regular meeting, we usually have motions first and second and then discussion. But this is a board member matter that would be under 10B of our usual agenda, where we have discussion and you see where the flow of the discussion goes. And in the event that there seems to be a consensus, then Mr. Silver or some other board member would make a motion, and the motion would be to adopt a resolution rescinding the resolution adopted on February 6, 2021. But I would suggest you have your discussion first, because this is a matter that needs to be aired out first, because I don't know where the discussion is going to lead. So rather than having this on, I would suggest that you have your discussion first, and then if it seems that it's appropriate to put this resolution forward, then someone would make a motion and a second at that time.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any other questions or comments for Mr. DeSanto from the board?
I have a question. So if you were to put it out to nonprofits, would there be a process where multiple different nonprofits would be putting their name into this?
Okay. The statute does not require or prohibit the board seeking RFPs, requests for proposals, from other organizations. It doesn't. But it doesn't require it. I mean, you could be approached by any one of these nonprofits that fit this category and convey to that organization and not solicit any other proposals and still be legally authorized to do so. That's another, everything tonight is totally within the discretion of the board. Yeah.
Does anyone else have any other questions from the board for Mr. DeSanto? At this time, what I would like to do is, again, Mr. Silva was the one that had brought it to my attention Friday morning, so I would like to start with Mr. Silva, if you would like to address your fellow board members and let us know your feelings moving forward.
Yes, thank you, Scott. You guys all know how I feel about the donation of Oak and Main School to the Vineland Community Foundation. Not only that it will benefit our youth in our community, we have also an opportunity to preserve a 112-year-old school. I think it's going to benefit our youth. There's endless possibilities, I believe, that we could do with this school, from community events to even doing Lego robotics, showing the kids how to use computers and making this fun and exciting for our community members and for our youth. I think that's a great idea. I also know that we have a sealed bid out for $150,000, but if we're going to give something back to the community, I feel that Oak and Main is one to give back to the community so it could be used for the right purpose for our students in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Silva. Would anyone else like to have any discussion on this from the board? Mr. Sobrana?
Schools are more than bricks and mortar. They're places where children learn not just the 3 R's. They learn about their community and its history, and also about life. I think whenever possible, we should preserve that history to share with future generations, presuming that the group, whatever group is using the facility, meets the criteria and also the caveats that was mentioned by Mr. DeSanto. If you stand quietly in one of those buildings, as I have, you can almost imagine the excited chatter of kids from past generations. And that's the thing that stays in the bricks and the mortar, and that's the thing that we should try to preserve. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to share anything concerning this?
Mr. President,
Mr. Fiocchi? Yes.
two quick notes. As Megan was speaking, I was thinking, if we have interest in donating this, I think we should open it to the community to see who else would be interested. Maybe have a committee to gauge interest for other local nonprofits. Brian made a good point about $150,000 not being a lot of money. But it is. I mean, we struggle to make cuts. Every little bit helps. And I have a problem raising taxes in the same meeting as we're giving away a building. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fiocchi. Would anyone else like to have discussion? Ms. Acosta?
Prior to today's meeting, I really wasn't sure what the foundation was about, and thankfully I received today a PowerPoint presentation as well as an explanation of what this foundation intends to do with the building. I've always said that we need more for kids. Our kids really don't have a special place of their own that they can actually sit there and either learn, I would love to see a little maker space, a place where they can explore, and a safe place for them, where it's really all about not just school, being inside a school, but a place where families can come and they can grow together. I love the idea of having a place dedicated to that. I know Mr. DeWinney, and I also know from my experience with when he is passionate about a cause, I know that he's going to work hard to ensure that the vision is turned into a reality. So, Mr. DeWinney, I know that you're a very busy person, but I also know that you care very much about this community and our kids. So I think your presentation really has made me think about, putting the building out to bid and perhaps getting $150,000. Yes, we need every penny we can get. However, the long-term benefit, as you mentioned, to our youth, I think would be here for a very, very long time, and we would reap those benefits eventually anyway. So I just wanted to share those thoughts.
Thank you, Ms. Acosta. Ms. Scott-Espati?
Thank us tonight. My first year on the board, many years ago, you would always say, and you brought it up, research your vote, look at the material, and then make your vote and be okay with it in the morning. And that's every time I make a vote, I really try to think about that. So I really appreciate that because it's something that you left me with when you left the board. I'm confident with the people who are involved with this organization and those who have spoken about it, Mr. DeWinney, that speaks something, and this is a solid thing for me. After researching it and speaking to other people about this, I believe it's solid. I think donating this building to the nonprofit for the Vineland Community Foundation would benefit our youth and our community, and doing anything to benefit our youth, and nowadays especially, is beneficial to us, our educators, and our city. So that's where I'm at. Thank you, Mr. DeWinney, for speaking.
Thank you, Ms. Cataspati. Mr. Rivera.
Good evening, everyone. I would say that my number one concern regarding this project would be the accessibility of all children in the city. As we know, the building is located in Oakland, Maine, and not many children, underprivileged children that live in Center City, may have access to that facility. I'm all for opening something that's going to benefit our children. I have 2 boys of my own, and things in this city are few and far between that it's available to our children. But my concern would be that this building opens, and because of location, it would be inaccessible to a portion of our children. Now, you guys may have plans in place to somehow get all the children in Vineland and through busing or some sort of idea, I don't know. But that would be my concern, that all children have access to this facility and can get there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rivera. Do we have anyone else that would like to speak from the board this evening on this matter? Seeing none, I just want to close a little bit up here, and we're all Vineland residents with all Vineland history, and I was always raised not to forget where I came from, and I was also raised that if people were in need and I had the means to do so, that you should always help. I chose to become a board member back in 2010 so I could give back to the community that's always been good to me. It's decisions like this that, some people say it's a no-brainer. Some people are having a tough time deciding whether we should give it away or not. These are decisions that we chose to make as board members, and whether it's a timing issue or anything like that, what I basically see is a nonprofit organization that was formed. Originally, yes, they were interested in possibly purchasing the building until there was discussion about becoming a nonprofit, which they were able to do. And history has always shown in the city of Vineland, when the city of Vineland or the school district were in need of any type of building or property, we would always work together to find a happy medium and a fair, reasonable solution for the need, be it the city or something, the school district, like Mr. Duenas said, with the Fells building. We're all in it together, and that's the team, that team pride and stuff that I continue to try and preach. I never tell my fellow board members how they should vote. I definitely let them know how I feel, and I let them digest the way they choose to digest what I say. Back in 2017, I took a couple of years off, and one of the things that fueled me to come back was board members actually didn't bat an eyelash when $1 million was being spent for turf or the movement from the Plum Street to this Landis building. There was no questions asked. We're talking about $150,000 that we could possibly make in selling this building versus giving it to a nonprofit organization uniquely called the Vineland Community Foundation. I mean, it pretty much says it right there in the name of this nonprofit, the Vineland Community Foundation. If I wasn't on this board, I'd probably be sitting or talking at that microphone because I would be in support of something like this. I also said time after time that we are considered the taxpayer, the custodian for the taxpayers' money. And I know that we have a budget in front of us with a 4% tax increase. And it's been 2 years now we've done that as a board. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Spinelli, but we've had the tax increase in there, and I don't believe we've had somebody come to the podium to say something negative about that. This time around we might have it, but again, when I see something like this in front of me, to me it is the proverbial no-brainer, and I want to thank Mr. Silva for, his passion to push this forward, because it's not easy to put yourself in that spotlight like he's doing, because he might get some flack for the public, but this is something that he believes in because it is community-based and what is best for our students. So I can tell you again, I'm only one vote, but I will be supporting this evening because I believe this is the right thing. I do thank everyone for the proposal originally and then the PowerPoint today. And I'm not sure how this vote would go, but if indeed information is needed in the future, it's just how we communicate. And I do thank the people that reached out to Dr. Gruccio and myself, because many people have great ideas out there, and they always sit at home and say what they could have or would have done and never have the courage to put it to an email or walk up to the podium and say, hey, this is what I think Vineland needs, or this is what we're lacking. So I applaud everyone for just having the courage to come forward and propose this. If I'm getting as Mr. DeSanto said, a vibe, I believe that as president, I would like to put this towards a motion. If you could just give the proper terminology. Again, I cannot make the motion or second it, but Mr. Silva, to me, was the man that brought it to my attention, so if he would entertain the motion, and it would need a second, if you can guide us properly on that, then I believe we could put it to a vote.
I would suggest that at this time, Mr. English, you entertain a motion for the adoption of the following resolution. Be it resolved by the Vineland Board of Education that the attached resolution adopted on February 6, 2021, entitled Resolution Authorizing the Solicitation of Sealed Bids for the Purchase of the Oaken Main School Property Not Needed for School Purposes, be and is hereby rescinded in its entirety. You can then have his first and second. Mr. Silva's moves.
I would like to make a motion to rescind authorizing solicitation of sealed bids for the purchase of Oaken Main School property. Is that fair enough? Or do I have to read the whole?
Second.
I had a motion. Did I have a second?
Second.
That was Mr. Silva made the motion. Ms. Kim Kataspati second the motion. Do I have a roll call, please?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
No.
Mr. Rivera,
Yes.
Mr. Sabrina,
Yes?
Mr. Silva,
Yes.
Ms. Spinelli,
No.
and Mr. English.
Yes.
6. The motion passes by a vote of 6 affirmative and 3 noes.
Thank you, Mr. Berman.
All right, Mr.
Question?
English? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. The next order of business would be a discussion, if the board wants to consider conditions to a conveyance to the organization. The most important thing, in my opinion, to this process is that both the board and the organization be on the same page. I think that the best way of achieving that is for me to hear if the board wants to impose certain conditions on the nominal consideration conveyance, and I would put those conditions in a resolution for the April meeting, as I mentioned before. I think the appropriate thing for me to do is to provide a copy of the resolution to the organization, because we would want to make sure that they're accepting these conditions. It wouldn't make much sense to adopt it and then find out that the conditions are not acceptable. So at this time, Mr. English, if you'd like to hear from board members on what conditions that the board would want to put, and this makes it a win-win. If the school district is foregoing the opportunity to receive money for this property, then you need to make sure that the property is going to be used as we expect it to be for the purposes in which it was conveyed, and that in the event it doesn't, that it reverts to the Board of Education. For example, if the property is no longer used for the original purposes of the conveyance, or if the foundation is no longer operational, title to the property would revert. The deed could also state that the property cannot be conveyed to a third party without being subject to the reverter. The deed could also say that any attempted leasing of the property can only be used for continuing the purposes, the youth and community educational purposes, that it must be subject to prior written approval of the board. These are the kinds of conditions that historically have been imposed on these situations. And if the board wants to impose them, I would include that in the resolution. And as I said, I would have that sent over to the organization to make sure that the wording is acceptable and that the conditions are acceptable.
Okay, I understand that pretty crystal clear. So board members, I could start to my right with Mr. Fiocchi and just as we go down, because I don't want to just be redundant, but if someone agrees with something that was said, you agree with that. I think it's pretty, Mr. DeSanto, if I'm understanding this, it's pretty cut and dry language that you usually use when we do stuff like this, but we would be adding something to that. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Mr. Fiocchi.
Yes, I agree with the language proposed by Mr. DeSanto.
Thank you. Mr. Holmes?
I too agree. Just a quick question. Would it be appropriate for us to send this back to Facilities Committee? If we are going to open this up to nonprofit organizations, which that seems like the direction we're going, I'd like to open it up to the entire community to have a say, and then we decide.
Mr. DeSanto?
Yeah.
Just for point of clarification, what we rescinded tonight, what Mr. Silva's asking for is to give it to the Vineland Foundation, correct?
Yes. And now that the public bid process is off the table, you're starting from scratch. So basically, you can convey it to this organization. You can provide for RFPs to other organizations. That's totally within your discretion. But Mr. Silva is promoting this particular situation. So I would have a resolution ready for the meeting conveying it to this organization. If a majority of the board wants to go out and solicit RFPs, then they would have to vote that resolution down and then we would move forward with RFPs and open it up to other nonprofits. You're starting from scratch, Mr. English, is what I'm saying.
Okay. Mr. Holmes, do you have anything else?
That's all.
That's all. Ms. Acosta?
I think that the language proposed by Mr. DeSantos in terms of conditions would be appropriate for a conveyance of the property. So I'm in agreement with it.
Thank you. Ms. Codispoti?
I'm in agreement with the language used by Mr. DeSanto for the conveyance of the property to the Vineland Community Foundation.
Mr. Silva?
I'm also in agreement with whatever Mr. DeSanto said, but I also would like to make a motion to have the board solicitor draft the required paperwork to donate the Oak and Main building to the Vineland Community Foundation.
Second.
I didn't hear that.
He had made a motion to donate it to the Vineland Foundation, the Oak and Main property.
Yes, but I was under the impression that the board would consider my request that that be done at the April meeting.
Yes.
Where I have a resolution with the wording so that you know exactly what you're voting on, and we would find out whether those conditions are acceptable to the organization.
All right.
All right? It may be premature tonight to do that without having the resolution worded in front of you.
Point of order. Point of order. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
I didn't hear it either.
Motion is to have the board solicitor draft the required paperwork to donate the Oak and Main building to the Vineland Community Foundation.
You don't have a resolution in front of you.
No, we don't have the resolution.
I thought you could do it without that. You don't really need a resolution. But
Right.
I'm in agreement with the conditions that you said for the...
I mean, what do you want me to do? You want me to take 20 minutes to write it out? Half hour to write it out?
Mr. DeSanto, Mr. English? Can we table this till next meeting so we can have a clear idea what we're doing? So there's no reason to rush into this right now.
Point of order. What I would like to do, I want to hear from each board member before we make a motion on the language that Mr. DeSanto wants to put forward. Mr. Silva, do you have are you okay with the language he was using?
I am. I'm okay with it.
Yes. Mr. Sobrano?
Yeah, I agree that the language was appropriate, as Mr. DeSanto stated.
And basically what I'm looking for is any additions to.
Yeah.
So far, Mr. Holmes was the only one that had an addition to.
I have none.
Mr. Rivera?
I'm in agreement with the language. I have nothing to add.
Ms. Spinelli?
So typically, we run things through committee. That's always the process. And I am the chair of the Facilities Committee, and at our last meeting, we have decided to put it out to bid. So I think the proper thing to do at this time is to bring it back to the Facilities Committee to be discussed.
And what would it be discussed under? What would you title it?
Donation.
Not so much donation, because that's not what we're discussing, the wording for what we awarded tonight. Do you have a problem with the wording?
I don't have a problem with the wording, but at the last facilities meeting, the committee agreed to put it out for bid. So I would like to bring it back to the facilities meeting to discuss, is it going to go out to all nonprofits, or are we going to just award it? And I would like to see the resolution prior to the next meeting in April.
I believe we would see the resolution, but if I'm understanding by the majority of the board tonight, the majority of the board would like to give it to the Vineland Foundation. Okay? It originally went to committee. It comes out of committee and comes to the board. The board voted on it, and it's been a back and forth. Then we had to have a special meeting. Originally, we had someone interested for $100,000.
That's my recommendation. That's
Okay.
my comment.
Okay, and no problem with his language?
I don't have any problem with the language.
Okay. Mr. DeSanto, I don't have any problem with the language. What I understand what Mr. Silva's trying to say, but I also want you to get this language clarified. And it's a simple process. I mean, April 14th is our next board meeting, correct?
And I'll do what the board wants, but all I can tell you is that, you know, historically, the board has never acted in a manner in which you adopted such an important resolution and not had the wording in front of you. I don't want to be obstinate about it, but if you are going to do this tonight, then give me some opportunity to write it out.
Correction. I would like to do this on the 14th. Ms. Spinelli wants to bring it back to committee, but I think she wants to bring it back to committee to discuss giving it to, opening up to all nonprofits.
Okay. And what I said earlier was, you now have a clean slate.
Yes.
Okay. You have a number of options before you. You can keep the property if you want it. You know, you can go out, you can go and have it RFPs to organizations, or you can go with this. Right now, as I see it, the agenda for the April meeting will be advancing the motion that Mr. Silva wants to make tonight. And if there are people who want to go and solicit RFPs, then there should be 5 people denying that resolution.
I understand.
Okay? Because that's the order of business tonight.
Now, just historically through committee, when board members want something to be added to agenda, I usually see if it's the majority of the board that wants something, because this isn't just donating a water cooler to Wallace Middle School. This is a little bit more. And I've been through what I guess I could call it the pillar debacle, okay? And I would never, and I came in after it started, and I will never put the Board of Education in that type of a light while I'm board president. That being said, if I'm understanding you right, Ms. Spinelli.
You're not understanding me right. I just want to clarify. It's not that I want to bring it back to committee to discuss opening it up to all nonprofits. I just think, as I've learned from being on the board, everything comes through committee. So the last committee meeting, we did not discuss donating the building. Right. So if that is what we're doing, and I'm in charge of facilities, I think that we should have Paul Fernaccio involved and write up, you know, all the details about the resolution prior to the meeting.
When is your next facility meeting? Immediately. How about that?
We can do that. I am not saying that I want to open this up.
But you are not making a decision about doing, all this is to check the language for what we're discussing, not donating it to several nonprofits.
Correct.
Okay. So just for the clarification, what are you going to put, what is this special meeting for facilities? So I know what it is called. What would you call it?
The donation of Oak and Main.
Donation of Oak and Main to
Vineland Community
Foundation. Okay. I believe in our committee process, Mr. DeSanto. What I would like for you to do, if you can get on that language, that way it's ready to be presented. It will go to committee. The committee will review it. I think every committee member, everybody that's on that committee already discussed the language tonight. Correct, Meg? What more are you looking to discuss?
I just think this is on the fly, and I don't think that that's the best way to operate. That's my personal opinion. You have all these other board members here. You can move forward with that. I don't like operating on the fly. That's
operating on the fly. So he wasn't going to present this till the 14th of April.
Right.
So what is the fly?
No, it's like tonight, if you're trying to make a motion.
No, we're not making a motion for anything. Tonight, we were just making sure that, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. DeSanto, we were discussing the language to put on, I want to call it the contract, so it can be shared with the nonprofit group, and then it would come back for an approval on the 14th of April.
Yes, and if If you want to go to committee in between that, that's fine.
I have no problem
The
with
most
it
important
going
thing
to
is for
committee
me
because
to
we
get
have
it
the
done.
time for
I
that.
need to get it done as soon as possible. I need to share it with board members, administration, and the applicant.
Yes.
So
And
just
now
for-
we'll know, because we don't want any surprises on the 14th. We want
Right.
to make sure that the
Absolutely.
language is acceptable, and the board members understand, and the applicant understands.
So just for example, tonight, prior to coming out here, we talked about the structure of the school, just it was a conversation. Is it historical? Can you change the windows? Can you change the framework? I would like to know those things, right? So if possibly that this could come back to the school, if this doesn't work out, things are going to be changed. It is a historical building, but it's not on the registry, if I am correct. So can they add on to it? Can you change the structure? Can you do all these things? Would that be in the resolution?
Yes, if board members want it in the resolution, sure. That's why
So
I was
like
saying, I
traditional
needed
old
that, hear that
schoolhouses, you
discussion.
don't change
And maybe,
the structure.
yeah.
So those are just the questions that I feel like, working with Paul and the committee, we could discuss and have the language written out.
So you're going to gather input from the committee on, and Paul,
Right, because he's in charge of facilities.
the facility that we're giving away?
Yes.
Okay. I don't have a problem with that.
I mean, you can, if the fellow board disagrees, this is,
No. I understand. We govern by committees, and the question, I guess, that I have is, our facilities committees in front of us.
Yeah.
So I didn't see any, they're happy with the language, so we're going to combine that language with, I think, Mr. DeSanto, what I would like to see happen is a sample of the language, and then we are either going to add language, like Meg said, windows, doors, sidewalks, shingles, gutters, urinals.
Typically be in there or no?
I think it's a blanket. What happens is if I'm correct, when we hand that building over, they are going to have to upgrade this building. We already know that it was going to cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars because the prevailing rate versus what a private person can get it done for. If indeed, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. DeSanto, if indeed the Vineland Board of Education has a mission statement from this nonprofit organization stating what their cause is, and they become defunct or go in a different angle, different way, then we will receive this building back to us, which would be an upgraded building. Because last I checked, the building's not conducive for any type of school. It's been decommissioned, am I correct?
Yeah.
So,
It's no longer on your facilities
I just
plan.
thought it was a no-lose for the district, because with the worst-case scenario, we're going to be getting back a building that is probably refurbished. So yes, we can bring it to committee at your request, because you are the chair. And if the committee members, who is on this committee? Me, you? Kim? Nick? No? Cedric?
Cedric, sorry.
Okay, so between the four of us, we can. And I have no problem that Mr. Fielke and Mr. Holmes, they've already said what they had to say this evening. So I'm okay with that. Mr. Silva, I understand what you were asking, but we are governed by our committees, and I can go through the committee process because I want this proposal that comes out from Mr. DeSanto, where this update, is it a contract, Bob? Is that basically what it is?
No, it's in the resolution.
Okay.
And then it's in the deed itself. So when we do a deed conveying it, it's called reverter clause.
So in that deed...
It's in the deed.
In that deed, it is crystal clear that it went through the committee, and we're governed by our committees, which definitely make the decisions on behalf of the board, and then it will come out the 14th, and I don't believe we should have any issues moving forward, because then it has made it through the committee process. It's already made it. Ms. Cottaspati.
Sorry, down here you kind of get blurred out, but I just want to clarify for my own. Going back to this committee, all they're going to do is do the resolution, the wording, to donate it to the Vineland Community Foundation, correct?
Correct.
Mr. DeSanto? Quick question. The motion that was approved tonight was to rescind placing it out for bid, correct? Is there a second part that Can you reread the motion, please? That was approved on number 6.
The- What was approved tonight?
Yeah, please, just
You can read the I'll read the rest.
I think it will help clarify some issues we're having here.
The resolution that was approved tonight read as follows. Be it resolved by the Vineland Board of Education that the attached resolution adopted on February 6, 2021, entitled Resolution Authorizing the Solicitation of Sealed Bids for the Purchase of the Oak and Main Property Not Needed for School Purposes, be and is hereby rescinded in its entirety. The sum and substance is that you have rescinded the solicitation of sealed bids, and the property is now and no longer going to be out for public bid. So you're back to square one in terms of what you want to do.
There's no specific motion saying that we're going to donate it to a specific non-charity, or not charity, nonprofit.
There's no motion on that table tonight.
Yeah, so that's why what I don't understand is why is that being pushed in committee when I think we could talk about it in committee and then vote on it. I think generally we have a flavor of how the board wants to go with this, so I'm not concerned about it, but.
And that's when Alex had made the motion to donate the building to the nonprofit organization, the Vineland Foundation. And then he had got a second, but it didn't happen because are we assuming that's the way it's going? Or I don't understand why he can't make that motion and we vote, because then your language will be, you're going to be sharing this with the Vineland Foundation.
My problem with the motion is that it does not identify, because there's no resolution attached to it that sets forth the various conditions and that the board is voting upon.
Okay.
That's how you have confusion, ambiguity in what you're doing.
Okay, so is it correct saying the discussion for buildings and grounds will be the donation of Oak and Main to the Vineland Community Foundation?
Yes, was his motion seconded?
Yes.
Okay, if the motion and the second were withdrawn and the committee was requested to entertain the conveyance to the foundation board, then yeah, that should be the subject of that discussion.
Okay.
Because Mr. Silva is withdrawing his motion with the understanding and expectation that that's what's going forward. It's just going to be deferred until the April meeting.
In fairness to Mr. Holmes, he had made the suggestion to open it up, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Holmes, to open it up to all nonprofits that fit the criteria, correct?
That's correct.
So at that point, he was the only board member that said that, but I wasn't sure how Ms. Spinelli felt, or...
I haven't really thought about it, to be honest with you.
But I think we can discuss that
You haven't thought about this since it's been a discussion?
Opening it up to everyone.
Okay.
Mr. English,
You
I
had
think
3 members opposing the conveyance tonight. If those same 3 members support RFPs, you still don't have enough to go out for RFP.
Mr.
I
President?
understand that,
Yeah.
but they're also the majority of that committee, and when we come out of committee with the majority consensus...
The committee can only make recommendations.
Okay,
Remember that.
okay,
And the board is free to reject or accept those recommendations.
okay.
Mr. President?
Yes.
When did we vote to open this up to all nonprofits?
I'm sorry, speaking in the mic.
When did we vote to open this to all nonprofits?
We didn't.
I made a suggestion, John, and I think that we should just send this back to committee, table it for tonight, let the committee further the discussion. If this was so cut and dry and an easy decision to make, then it would just be yes, 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 9 votes. But there seems to be some kind of controversy going on.
No, listen.
So let's just table
Mr. Holmes,
it.
Mr. Holmes.
You can't.
We had
bang
discussion in
Scott,
executive.
you can't bang the gavel on me.
Mr. Holmes, we had executive discussion on this, and a board member.
What was the vote after executive session?
There was no vote because it's called a straw. We got a consensus.
Okay. And
What
then
is
it
the-
changed
what
2
is-
days later.
What is the vote this evening? The vote is 6-3. I don't need to get in a contest over what our views are here.
So let's
This is
just
a passionate
let's just
discussion.
table it.
Now, I have no problem kicking this to committee, but it's being kicked to committee under the understanding that we are donating the building to the Vineland Community Foundation.
That's
If-
fine. It's a discussion, though. It's not
Yes.
it's not a vote.
And we're going to make sure that the language that accompanies that from Mr. DeSanto is what the committee sees fit, language-wise. And then it will come to the full board on the 14th for a vote to donate the building to the Vineland Community Foundation. And I would like the stipulations, everything read for the record that evening, exactly how it will be stated.
Okay.
Does anyone have a problem with that?
I don't have a problem. I just, my statement was that if...
Yes, we didn't vote either way, because we didn't vote on that, because Mr. DeSanto's understanding was, when you get the consensus of the vibe tonight, people want to give this away to the, so, I mean, we can drag it and own the building for another month, that's fine. I mean, but sooner or later, it's going to come to a head, and the best I can do is the 14th of April.
Okay, my point was that
They absolutely can.
Mr. DeSanto was uncomfortable with having a resolution tonight and voting on the up and down for the donation, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so my question was, are we going to have that resolution at the April meeting for an up and down vote, and if it's voted down, then go throw it back to committee and start over again, but not throw it back to the committee and have a resolution for a possible donation at the same time? That was my only question. Which way are we going?
That's for you.
Because all I heard was back to committee and open it up to all nonprofits, and we have an offer on the table here, or a request for a donation under certain stipulations that we want to make. Then let's deal with that first. And if it doesn't pass, then throw it back to the committee or re-advertise to sell it or whatever else that you want to do.
Listen, my feelings and my vote haven't changed since I first heard about it till this point right now. Some people have changed. Mr. DeSanto, is there a way we put it to vote contingent upon your information, so at least we walk out of here knowing that that is what we're doing, and it's contingent upon the committee reviewing your language and approving it? I know you're going to tell me, I know what you're going to tell me, but I just need to know, because
Let's quickly go back to the committee situation. It seems to me that what you're talking about is that the committee will consider a draft resolution. That draft resolution will have certain conditions that appears to be the consensus of the board favor. All right? The committee will look at that resolution and see if they want to revise it in any way, make some additions or whatever. But that's the subject of the committee meeting. It's just 4 board members getting to talk about it before April 14th. All right? And if the committee decides that the resolution conditions are fine, then it goes to the full board as is. If they recommend changes, then those recommendations will go and see if the board wants to add any of those changes. But if not, it's going to be the same resolution that was originally drafted. I mean, I don't want to make this thing any out of sorts than it is, but if the board wants to vote tonight, then I can't stop you from voting tonight. All I can do is rehab the situation as best I can.
Ms. Spinelli knows I respect the committee process, or she would not have asked the way she asked that. So anyone that knows me, we are a board that is governed by our committees, okay? If not, we'd be having committees of a whole, and we've been down that nightmare. So I have no problem with this, but now we know what the language is for the discussion. Now, if it, I would hope that it doesn't come out of the committee that we're going to offer it to all nonprofit, because then that's not what we discussed this evening.
No.
And
what's coming out of the committee is the conditions and stipulations in the resolution. If the committee's in agreement, that can be forwarded to the board, period.
As board,
if they have any
as board
changes,
president, I do not need a vote on that, and that is what we are deciding. Ms. Spinelli, as vice president and chair of the committee, you are taking that to the committee. Mr. DeSanto, you will get that done for her in a timely fashion.
I will.
I don't want her to call a meeting if indeed you don't have the resolution complete.
The scheduled meeting is for the 27th, so I'm going to...
for the 27th.
No, I'm going to move it up to the first week of April.
Oh, okay. Well, no matter what date, it'll be done.
Yeah, I mean, that way it's done. And again, we do things as a board. Listen, we don't have to agree and love each other here. At this point, a decision was made, a consensus was drawn. So this is the way that, as board president, I am choosing to move forward with this. So at that time, do I have any more questions or comments concerning this matter? Seeing none, do I have a motion for adjournment this evening?
So moved.
Second. Yes, I'm sorry, Mr. Berman.
Who made the motion and seconded?
Inez, Kim and Inez. All in favor?
Aye.
Good night and thank you.